Hey everyone, welcome back to our channel. Today, we're delving into the life of Babyface Nelson, one of America's most notorious gangsters. From petty crimes to FBI's most wanted, this is a story you won't want to miss. So hit like, subscribe, and let's get into it. Babyface Nelson, born Lester Joseph Gillis, was an American bank robber and criminal active during the Great Depression era. His nickname, Babyface, was derived from his youthful appearance, which masked a far darker and violent persona. Babyface Nelson's criminal activities unfolded during the Great Depression, a time of widespread economic despair and social upheaval in the United States. It was an era that produced some of America's most infamous criminals, who were often seen as anti-heroes by a public disenchanted with failing institutions. The exploits of these figures, Babyface Nelson included, were widely publicized, turning them into near-mythical figures. Born on December 6, 1908 in Chicago, Illinois, Lester Joseph Gillis was the seventh of 8 children. His parents, Joseph and Mary Gillis, were working-class immigrants, hailing from Belgium and Ireland respectively. Family life was difficult, marked by economic struggle and domestic instability. Nelson dropped out of school at an early age, and his path toward criminality began to take shape. The Gillis family lived in a modest working-class neighborhood in Chicago. Joseph Gillis, Lester's father, worked in a factory, while his mother took care of the large family. The economic conditions of the Gillis household were tight, aggravated by the broader economic difficulties of the time, including a post-World War recession and later the Great Depression. Living in an environment of scarcity and limited opportunities, young Lester turned toward petty crime as a means of escape, a decision that would eventually lead him down a much darker path. As he grew older, Nelson's criminal activities escalated both in complexity and severity. His penchant for violence became more pronounced, and he began to participate in more organized crimes like armed robbery. By his late teens and early 20s, Nelson had already served time in state prisons for various offenses such as car theft and assault. Each time he was released, it seemed to harden his resolve rather than deter him. It was clear that the young man, who had once been involved in minor offenses, had transitioned into a hardened criminal. In the mid-1930s, Nelson decided to form his own gang, capitalizing on the criminal expertise and connections he had garnered over the years. He recruited a variety of associates, ranging from experienced bank robbers to younger, impressionable youths who were drawn to Nelson's audacity and the prospect of quick riches. Together, they embarked on a series of high-stakes bank robberies across the Midwest, employing tactics that ranged from meticulous planning to brute force. Nelson was a strict and demanding leader, but inspired loyalty among his followers. His gang became known for its audacity, willingness to shoot it out with law enforcement, and its ability to elude capture, at least for a time. The formation of his gang signaled a new chapter in Nelson's life, elevating him from a small-time criminal to one of the FBI's public enemies. His newfound status allowed him to recruit even more seasoned criminals and to pull off crimes that were more ambitious and violent than ever before. Babyface Nelson's association with John Dillinger began in the early 1930s, when both were becoming increasingly high-profile figures in the criminal underworld. The two met through a mutual acquaintance, and it became clear that their skills and audacity could be complementary. Dillinger was already a well-known bank robber by then, notorious for his daring heists and escapes. Nelson, with his own violent tendencies and a knack for planning, became a key figure in Dillinger's gang. Their association marked a pivotal moment in the criminal careers of both men, elevating the level of their operations and the scope of their notoriety. Once aligned, Babyface Nelson and John Dillinger embarked on a series of high-profile bank robberies and criminal escapades that shocked the nation. These included brazen daylight robberies, where both men demonstrated their willingness to use extreme violence and sophisticated tactics to achieve their aims. It was during this period that the gang robbed banks in states like Indiana, Wisconsin, and Illinois, netting large sums of money and evading capture through a combination of planning, speed, and firepower. Perhaps most notoriously, both were involved in the robbery of the Central National Bank in Greencastle, Indiana. This heist was meticulously planned and resulted in a substantial loot, but it also escalated the level of violence and risk involved in their operations. With each joint venture, the reputations grew, as did the determination of federal and local authorities to bring them to justice. Within Dillinger's gang, Nelson was not just another member. He was a significant player with specific roles and responsibilities. Known for his volatile temper and fearlessness, he was often the enforcer in the group, the one willing to resort to violence swiftly. Nelson was also involved in the planning stages of their heists, using his own experience and criminal acumen to contribute to the gang's strategies. His role in the gang also served to bolster its firepower. Nelson was known for his preference for high-powered weaponry, and he played a key part in arming the gang with the kinds of machine guns and other weapons that would give them an edge over law enforcement. Despite his violent tendencies, Nelson was highly valued by Dillinger for both his criminal expertise and his unflinching willingness to confront the authorities. Babyface Nelson was infamous for a number of high-stakes crimes that captured the public's attention. However, it was the Sioux Falls, South Dakota, bank robbery in 1934 that remains one of his most infamous exploits. Here, Nelson and his gang engaged in a violent shootout with police, injuring several officers and leaving a lasting impression on the community traumatized by the violent crime spree. Not to be overlooked is the Little Bohemia Lodge incident, which was an attempted ambush on John Dillinger and his gang, including Nelson. The gang escaped, but not before engaging in a gun battle with federal agents. Nelson himself was responsible for wounding and killing multiple federal agents during the escape. The media of the day were both fascinated and horrified by Babyface Nelson. His youthful appearance contrasted sharply with his violent tendencies, making him a subject of public intrigue. Newspaper headlines often portrayed him as a ruthless killer, emphasizing his role in shootouts and the danger he posed to law enforcement. However, some segments of the public, disenchanted by economic hardship and institutional failures, saw him as a sort of Robin Hood figure, a sentiment that was not uncommon for outlaws of the time. As Babyface Nelson's criminal activities escalated in audacity and violence, the Federal Bureau of Investigation (FBI) became increasingly involved in efforts to bring him and his gang to justice. The agency considered Nelson a public enemy, and his capture became one of their top priorities. Leading the charge was Melvin Purvis, the special agent in charge of the Chicago office of the FBI. Purvis had already gained national recognition for his role in the capture and killing of other notorious criminals like John Dillinger and Pretty Boy Floyd, and he was determined to add Nelson to his list. The efforts to capture Babyface Nelson reached a tipping point on November 27, 1934, during the infamous Battle of Barrington, a gunfight between Nelson, accompanied by two other gang members and FBI agents. This confrontation would prove fatal for Nelson, marking the end of his violent and chaotic life. So there you have it, the wild life and crimes of Babyface Nelson. He's a grim yet captivating figure in American history, embodying both audacity and cunning. If you enjoyed this journey into the criminal underworld of the 1930s, hit that like button and subscribe for more. What should we cover next? Drop a comment below, and thanks for watching.